I identify more as a ranger. More of an Aragorn.
What's a ranger?
Aragorn's...
is that like the layman speak?
You sat through two of these movies. You've not picked this up.
Well, a ranger is another word for tracker in this world. You know, he's the true and rightful heir to the throne of Gondor.
But organizing my records. I got the gist of it. I just missed the details. Welcome to Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
I mean, who wants to have sex with a guy named Bob?
Oh, Bob. Just doesn't sound right. Oh, Bob.
Bob. Oh, Bob.
Oh, Bob.
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 Bob. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
That's me. Protege of mine. Rank number 32 in the federal prison system.
32?
That's right.
Out of what, 20?
Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone'sacriticpodcast.com. We're on Facebook with our group and regular page. Our Twitter and Instagram handle is CriticsPod. Go there to participate in the top fives, read Sean's reviews, interact, whatever else you can do on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Our 88 movies are there too. So is the classic, all sorts of stuff. Look for our witty hashtags.
Your witty hashtags.
Only when I'm feeling motivated. We're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and all your other podcatchers. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and rate and review the show or read your review on the air. And then Patreon. ihatecritics.net/Patreon is the best way to support the podcast. I actually have everything boxed up and it's in my car. So
that's the next step.
So hopefully tomorrow, Wednesday, it goes into the mail before it freezes and all the mugs break. But
it's well insulated.
Oh, yeah. I got like napkins and stuff in there. I got boxes that were too big. So a couple of people are going to have really big boxes and just this little mug in it. But those are coming your way soon. And if you want your own set of merch, head to ihatecritics.net/Patreon and help out the podcast. Get yourself a credit on the show. And I'd imagine we'll do a bonus episode again eventually. Anything else on intro stuff? Normally we try to record on Sundays, but Sean last night said, I feel like I want to record on Monday because I feel like someone's going to die. And sure enough,
lo and behold,
Stan Lee passed away. Thank you, Stan, for waiting until we record to... He's 95. It's not that sad.
That's the same line I used on my son. But I could see the lip quivering. I'm like, he's 95. Yeah, full life. It's all good. But still.
Yeah. He's created a bunch of things that are hugely relevant today.
Not being a comic book person growing up, I actually didn't know anything about Stan Lee until Mallrats. Honestly, I didn't. I had no idea.
Me too.
I saw him in Mallrats, and they kind of explained who he was and what he did. And contextually, I mean, the great thing about Kevin Smith, he's so smart. He makes that introduction so quickly that you're like, yeah, you're totally in for the joke, even if you didn't realize who he was. That's just the level of genius of that scene and the way he plays it too. He is so smart, so confident, so charismatic. You buy into the legend very quickly. And that's one of the great things about Stan Lee is that he communicates himself very quickly. He always did, and you kind of knew this guy was important just from the way he spoke, and that's a pretty impressive trait.
I actually knew the name Jim Lee in comics before I knew Stan Lee. Jim Lee's an artist and whatnot. So hearing who Stanley was, it came from seeing him in cameos and wondering, didn't that guy was in that one X-Men movie too? What is his deal? I'm like, oh, geez, he's the creator. Oh, okay.
Wow, we knew it before Josh did, it sounds like.
We're talking like 2000, 2001.
Mallrats was
98.
5,
Yeah,
6.
96, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm not a huge comic book nerd. It's more of a recent thing for me to get into them and know who Stan Lee was. And also, I had a buddy who worked at. He's a very loose buddy here, but he worked at Wizard magazine, and he shared a couple of tales over time about interacting with Stanley. If I'm not mistaken, our Patreon supporter Sarah may have met Stanley as a result as well, because she was married to this gentleman that I'm talking about. But she'll have to clarify that for us if she wants to. But yeah, I get it's a big day for those in that particular world, and we owe a lot of what we're talking about throughout the year since we've been on this show dedicated to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the things that he helped create. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what they're going to do, because they're going to work out some sort of cameo in the future Marvel movie. I mean, obviously he's probably going to be in some that are already done and haven't come out yet, but they're going to do something posthumously with him. So I'm just curious what they're going to do. I'm sure it'll be fun. And but he lived a long, full life, and I don't know. He definitely deserves all the credit he gets. It's relevant up until he's as relevant now as he probably ever was, which is insane.
Best cameo.
Spider-Man. His poignant words are better to me than any of the one-offs that he gives. I guess a runner-up would be when he's got the helmet on and he's talking to the alien. Was that Infinity War? Because I'm having a hard time remembering.
I thought it was Guardians.
Guardians 2.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Guardians 2. That's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't count Mallrats, I was going to say Guardians 2, but I really can't remember a lot of them. They're all so quick. And actually, you know what? That DC movie,
Teen Titans.
That was pretty amazing. That was the last time I saw him in a movie, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of old people that are still relevant, the Dr. Seuss, The Grinch.
Also dead.
But relevant.
$66 million relevant this weekend. A huge hit. Already made back its budget with its overseas take. So this is a monster. The Grinch, co-directed by Scott Mosier, who is another Kevin Smith acolyte. The story here is pretty much the same, except the little touches that they bring to this character are a little bit different. This is the first neurotic Grinch. This is a Grinch who's got some mental health issues. You need some Zoloft maybe or something. I like this Grinch though. I related to him in many ways, and that's why I like this movie, because it's basically created the Grinch as a character that fits into this time. He seems like a guy who's ill at ease socially, and it's kept him insulated away from people, along with his traumatic issues from childhood. Relatively simplified, but simplified enough that for necessity for a kids movie. There's a number of really smart things that they do with this character throughout this movie. Especially there's the party scene at the end where we all know, but I loved the way they handled that. It's so great. I didn't mind all the touches that weren't there. The little things about what was it? The way he realizes that they're celebrating Christmas and he's upset about it, but he's not the way it was in the original.
Right.
The original character is so much more malevolent than this character. This one's got a lot of reasoning why he's doing what he's doing. The first one was all about hypocrisy. It was hypocritical consumerism. It was a criticism. He felt that the Who's weren't actually celebrating Christmas; they were celebrating consumerism, and he was going to take that away from them and teach them how to. He's going to stick it to them. And then he learns that they actually still did know what Christmas was. And this one's a little bit different from that, in that he's realizing that his realization is more that they. I mean, he cares about that part of it, I guess, but not as much.
It's there. I think the main difference is from the get-go, there's moments of doubt where he questions himself from the beginning. It's not just a simple on and off switch where all of a sudden the light turns on and his heart explodes. There's definitely glimpses of where he'll make a look like, really? And then kind of go back to his evil ways, if you will. But you're right. The consumerism thing is there, but you're right. It's not as
prevalent.
The main thing.
Yeah. I did like it, though. I laughed plenty. Benedict Cumberbatch's voice was good. I enjoyed the way he vocalized this character. The relationship between him and the dog was deepened a great deal more than it's been in the previous movies. Whereas before he was kind of realizing later that he loved his dog. He loves the dog throughout this one.
The fat reindeer is not in the original, right?
No. That is a new character, but a wonderful new character.
And I feel like I might get shit for saying this, but Kenan Thompson, he's got a time and a place. This is a time and a place. I enjoyed him in this. He basically does the Kenan Thompson voice, but it worked for this character, and it he played the Grinch's best friend, but who's totally oblivious to the fact that the Grinch hates him. So it's kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I took my kids to it, and I was packed. We had like the last 3 seats in the front row, but it was very, very watchable. I mean, it can only be so good because you're dealing with not historical, but a property that's already exists, and all you're doing is kind of updating it. But for what it was, I'm really excited to see Scott Mosier do well, if that means anything.
I was really prepared to dislike this because I'd read a few things about it that I didn't like. It made me a little bit nervous, but then I watched it and I was like, "This is not bad at all." Like I said, there's an update to this. The structure of the character is just a little bit different and a little bit more modern. He's got angst. He's got scruples a little bit. He kind of feels bad about being mean, but it's also it's also part of the depth of who he is as a person. He's been alone all his life, and he doesn't know how to deal with people, and he feels sad about that. And that's he's lashing out from that perspective, and he's growing as a character throughout, which the Grinch doesn't do in the original. He just grows all of a sudden at the end,
right? And I guess that's what I liked the best about it was that because you really in the other versions you can just go. You just kind of have to accept it for what it is, and you grew up with the story, and most people like it for nostalgia purposes, if at all. But this one, it definitely provides a watchable quality to it in a lot of ways. It's like Rob Zombie's Halloween. They gave him a backstory. He wasn't just a mean guy.
Your idea of the backstory is what I was most interested in finding out about the film. I didn't want to see it because I don't like the original Grinch. I don't like Jim Carrey's version either. But I thought this might be a prequel or something like that. Is this literally like a retelling of the Grinch Stole Christmas?
It's a retelling. And they don't even really dig into the backstory other than they just kind of show you a quick, kind of, I guess, the last Batman movie where they kind of, or the second to last one, where they just kind of briefly hint at it, but they don't, it's not like a full first 15, 20 minutes is his backstory. It's just more touched upon.
It's a full retelling, though, of the original story. It's just the original story is only 30 minutes long in TV version.
And the way he tears the town apart is much more real. I mean, it's not realistic, but it's much more realistic than the original version. Like, he worked really hard on these contraptions, and I don't know. But yeah, I really liked the fat reindeer, and that did add something new to the story that was kind of extra fun for me, I guess.
Yeah.
The creator behind this, Chris Meledandri, is the founder of Illumination Entertainment and the Despicable Me movies, Minions, Lorax, blah, 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 blah. And, I mean, it was revealed this week that they're going to be doing a Shrek light reboot as well under Chris Meledandri. And in the Despicable Me movie, I was interested in that. I liked that movie at first because it was kind of a different take. I didn't catch on until like the third film or even Minions, where everything was just very hyper, a lot of physical humor involved and whatnot. I'm worried that everything that he does now is more of a straight up cash grab as opposed to telling some kind of unique story or offering something new visually for our palates. Because animation-wise, it's hard to find anything new now that you're not going to compare to Pixar. So is there anything different about this that makes you think that Illumination isn't strictly just a cash grab? Because that's what I see in my head. I see sugar and I see cash grab out of this studio now. So is there anything worth it out of this other than the update? You're saying maybe more nuanced characters than the originals.
I would say and this is probably, I don't know, I won't speak for Sean, but the fact that Scott Mosier's name's on it right away has me rooting for it, wanting it to be good. And I feel like I'm noticing more, the subtle things that it's still probably a cash grab, but, the first-time director gets to come in here and be a part, one of two directors in the movie. And, I feel like I'm seeing things, I'm bringing it to it, but I feel like I'm seeing things that he's bringing to the movie and making it a little different. And I don't know if it's my bias towards Scott Mosier or if The Grinch brings you more than Despicable Me 3 did.
It absolutely does. I mean, there's a lot more care for the character than there is in any of those Despicable Me movies. I mean, I like the first one a little bit. Mm-hmm. They get worse as you go on, and I hate the Minions. I hate the Minions. And really, I don't really like much of what Illumination does, but I think this one, I think you can definitely tell that there's a creator at the helm who was interested in bringing something to this character that's a little bit new and different. Yeah,
so I'd recommend it. I mean, you've probably already seen it if you're going to see it, but and you're listening to this podcast.
In case you're wondering, there are Grinch sequels already. So in terms of the books, I don't know if Theodore Geisel did them, but people have already done Grinch sequels for TV in the 70s. So there's always the opportunity for them to continue this series.
Yeah, I'm curious how they will do it with the way they've built this Grinch character up, and then they have to totally tear it down.
Unfortunately.
But they'll find a way. They did it with, Despicable Me, the guy was a bad guy. And
more than likely, the sequel would be...
They'll introduce a new bad guy.
They'll bring him together with the Cat in the Hat, I believe is the sequel.
So the Cat in the Hat will be the bad guy, and he's the Despicable Me character. I don't know his name. Gru. Because basically that's what this is now, because he's a good guy at the end.
We get a Seuss cinematical universe? is that...
I mean, it's certainly possible,
okay,
yes.
All right.
I don't know. My kid's at the age of reading Dr. Seuss, so I'm okay with that. Although by the time they're all done, I'll be 12.
Overlord, yes. I did not think this was going to be good, but boy, did I have fun with this movie. This is what surprises me most about Overlord is how conventional this is, because the trailer makes it look like you're getting a straight-up World War II zombie movie, and instead what you get is a World War II movie that has some speculative science fiction related to what the Nazi scientists were up to, and that was way more interesting than the zombie movie in the trailer. The idea here is that a group of soldiers who actually survived this fly over into France, and there's 25 of them, and only 4 or so have survived. They've got to get to this church and blow it up so that they can blow up the communication tower that will allow the D-Day invasion to take place. They get to this church and they find that inside is a German scientist who's performing some really horrible experiments on people, trying to create super soldiers for the Third Reich. And they've got to figure out a way to blow up the tower and get around these disgusting soldiers. And this movie is fun. I had a great time with this. I had a great time with the World War II stuff. I thought they really handled that stuff well. I like these characters. I especially love the villain. What he becomes toward the end is spectacular. It's gory. It's horror, and it's ambitious. I really dug that a lot. I'm a big fan of this movie.
Josh,
did you see Overlord?
I did not.
Okay,
wife wouldn't let me.
As much as I want to be as effervescent about as you are about this one. I'll dial it down a notch for my review. I think it's fine, actually, and a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. Okay, cool. But I kept comparing it to like, oh, so it's like Captain America, the First Avenger, just like rated R. There's a lot of similar elements here. It's a small team going in to stop some special experiments. You've got a German scientist working on super soldier serum. You've got a really nasty, gnarly looking face dude that seems to be the leader, like Red Skull. Okay. There's a lot of similar elements there, but it obviously it's not a story about Captain America. Point being, if you're just going to turn your brain off a little bit and enjoy a gory World War II beat down fest, like this is pretty decent. Some of the creatures that are created here, what I just said doesn't normally I would totally roll my eyes at, right? A World War II beat down gore fest. No, okay, I'm not on board, but this has enough style to it and enough viscera that I can kind of get behind it. And it seems everyone's on board. The director is, I think, Julius Avery. I've not heard that name before.
I think he's a newcomer.
Newcomer, okay.
It's under the J.J. Abrams Bad Robot umbrella.
Yeah, and as far as I know, this is the first rated R project that J.J. Abrams has really been involved in. As a producer or whatever. Cloverfield, is that rated R? Because I feel like that's on the cusp of PG-13. Point being, I think that's about as rough as it got for J.J. Abrams. In this one, they're swearing up and down. There's clear, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre type gore stuff. I say that specifically because of some hooks that are involved in this movie, and that was a hard one to get through. But it's fun. But I was, I guess, hoping for a little bit more along the lines of science fiction. Like, why? How did they do this? They show the serum in the film, but where did it come from? Because they hint that this has been there the whole time, that the German invasion of France has been partly because they've been trying to unearth this from the land itself. I want to know more about that. and the movie doesn't have the time for that because they're on a specific mission here. There's only a few people alive and whatnot. I do want to know more about that. And there was a little part of me that was hoping, even though J.J. Abrams said that this had nothing to do with Cloverfield or anything like that, there was a part of me that was hoping that there was the slightest bit of tie-in, because that would have worked for me.
It would have, very easily they could have. I didn't stay through the credits. I thought maybe if I stayed through the credits, there might be something, but I didn't. I decided not to bother.
Take it from me, there's nothing there. You had to know that I was going to try. I could have just looked at my phone, but then I got conscious about looking at my phone in the theater, you know.
I keep waiting for Josh to say, I wish I had Captain America in it.
But you know what, though? I mean, if you saw this, I don't know if you saw that at all while you were watching it.
It didn't occur to me, no.
But I was explaining it to my son, and he's like, so like Captain America? And I mean, it was probably in the way that I was describing it, but...
Well, just for shits and giggles, I looked up on Rotten Tomatoes, and Captain America's got a 79% rating. Overlord has an 80. So Overlord is better than Captain America. That's what I'm taking away from this.
I suppose you could. We get a brief appearance from a couple of actors whose faces you know, and they're not in the film very long, specifically the sergeant of this battalion or whatnot that's doing the airdrop. I expected him to be in the film more. I was looking forward to that, in fact, but not so much.
I figured from the trailer he wasn't going to be around very long. It made sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not saying this movie is special, but I did enjoy it a lot. And I did, because if you know about World War II and what Germany was up to, they did some really horrible shit, including experimenting on the dead and trying to bring them back to life. This is shit they actually tried to do, and when you consider that in the context of this movie, that's kind of awesome. What they were trying to do in this movie with that is a lot of fun.
Yeah, gosh, in a way.
Taking that to it's a thought experiment, like taking that to its most extreme.
Yeah, when you put it that way, I'm almost putting it in like a Twilight Zone, X-Files scenario where if you like that kind of thing, they occasionally extrapolate it on legends and myths and whatnot. So this is in that wheelhouse.
Very cool. The Girl in the Spider's Web.
Yes, this is one of the... it's Stieg Larsson began this as his Millennium series. It was taken over after he died in 2005, and they kept it going with other authors. This was not written by him, but inspired by his character, Lisbeth Salander, who's played here by Claire Foy. The idea is that she takes vengeance on behalf of women against horrible men. And the opening scene, which we've seen in the trailer, I love the way it plays in the movie. The way this opening scene plays is so great at establishing who she is that you don't need the other movies. This sets her up in just a perfect fashion. It's quick, it's to the point, and you know who she is and what you're in for, not just from the past, but for the rest of the movie. And it's so clever to actually figure out a way for a director to show that without having to lay in dialogue. You don't have to sit there and listen to that laundry list of things that she is from other people talking about her. She's doing it. It's actually there on screen. You're watching her do it, and it's really impressive, and it's a quick way to lead you back into the story. And that opening scene really made the movie for me. I like this movie because of that opening scene and because of how clever that was, and that translates well throughout the rest of the movie. Now, yes, is she being turned into kind of a goth James Bond? Yes, there's no doubt about it. They try to turn her into a franchise action hero, but it's a franchise I would enjoy if it had been successful. It's dead now. It only made $9 million, but Claire Foy is really great. She's an amazing actress. There's just nothing she can't do, and she is so amazing in this character. She really inhabits Lisbeth Salander in the same kind of way that Noomi Rapace did in the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. She really is this character. I like the way the story plays out. I like where they go with these characters. I think that the biggest problem that I had with this movie is the trailer gives so much away. And you don't realize that. You're watching the movie and you're ticking off trailer scenes in your head and oh shit, the final fucking scene of this movie is in the trailer. What are you doing?
Well, it didn't work because no one got to the theater either.
They gave away the whole thing. Her sister, they play out the whole thing throughout the first half of the movie. They say the sister's dead. No, they say in the trailer that's her sister. The second trailer, that's my sister over there. Fuck, man, that was supposed to be a reveal. Do you guys not watch the movie before you make the trailers, assholes?
Sony doesn't. No, we've talked about that before on this show. How Sony mismanages a lot of its properties, be it Bond, be it Spider-Man, be it this. The David Fincher version, say what you want about it being maybe a little rote, is one of the more stylish films I've seen in recent memory. It's wonderful to look at. And I love what Rooney Mara did to distance herself from Noomi Rapace's interpretation of the character. Whether or not you think that is what Stieg Larsson wanted, she definitely had her own unique way of doing it. And so does Claire Foy. I can't say a thing that's wrong about her performance, but I don't think that it's the way that the character was written originally. That Dragon Tattoo book is one of my top 5 books of all time. It's just so great. It was such a breath of fresh air to have a heroine in a role that has flaws, clear flaws, right? And she doesn't get close to anybody, but she's the one doing all of the things that are normally attributed to a Batman or some masculine character that's going to take care of everything for everyone. And here you have a very slight, socially retarded person coming in and doing everything. That's so cool. And Noomi Rapace nailed it better than any of them, in my opinion. There's something wrong about this movie, and it's not the direction per se, because I like Fede Alvarez's eye. I liked his Evil Dead version. In fact, the movie itself it's not bad, but it also doesn't grip me in any way. So I'm kind of not surprised that it only made $9 million. They've messed this up from the beginning. The sequel books that they decided not to make into movies have a lot of very interesting twists and turns, and say what you want about the Swedish language films. I would agree with you probably. I've seen it all now. I've digested all of this, and this is the least of all of the material. The guy that they cast is Mikael Blomkvist instead of Daniel Craig. I know that we're pretty on one side with Daniel Craig. You love him, you hate him on this show.
I'm kind of neither here nor there.
Okay, we've covered all the bases within that. He really was the interpretation of Mikael Blomkvist to me, especially more than Michael Nyqvist was in the Swedish language versions. This guy has nothing. I've seen him before. I don't know what movie it was, but he's got nothing for me. So he's an integral part of this story, and she relies on him. And us as readers of these books and viewers of the previous movies, we know how important he is. And this guy does nothing for me. He's a blank piece of paper. You know.
In fairness, though, the script didn't do him any favors. He's the character is extraordinarily underwritten.
Unnecessary.
As opposed to Lisbeth. He's very, he's almost non-existent as a character. Whereas they also took a lot of what he usually does and gave it to the Lakeith Stanfield character and built that character out from there and made him her partner, which is another aspect that the trailer ruins, because throughout the first part of the film, it's an antagonistic thing between the two of them. You don't know which side he's on, but of course you've seen the trailer, so now of course you know where he is and you know which side he's on. I think without the trailers, this would be a much, much better movie for me, because I did enjoy so much of it. I think Fede Alvarez is a pretty talented director. I like this movie a good deal, but there's a few issues too. I mean, they do a couple of those listing scenes, like especially for Lakeith Stanfield's character, and the Blomkvist character is completely botched, both in the casting and in the underwritten side of it. But I like enough of this movie, especially the sister and that whole plot, the way that plays out. I thought that was really fantastic.
One more thing I'll add about this: it's about the character of Lisbeth Salander herself. There's something off-putting and uncomfortable, and also mysteriously interesting about her in the books and in all of the previous films that I've seen. And again, this has nothing to do with Claire Foy's performance, but it's like the film tries to strip her a little bit of that by making her this conventional action hero, the goth born, or the goth bond, as you put it. It's a great way of putting it, because it strips a little bit of that uniqueness from her. I mean, Rooney Mara had, shaved eyebrows and everything like that, and the film had no problem putting her out there as with the nudity, okay? And the reason why I was cool with that is that it was like I talked about with Cherry 2000 of all films, right? Melanie Griffith is very confident in the way that she's walking around. She doesn't mind getting naked in front of somebody because, well, you're not going to do anything with it anyways. Like, she has that kind of self-confidence that it comes across as not exploitative. And in this one, there's no nudity, and that's not. I'm not saying that it needed to have that, but in all aspects of this Lisbeth Salander interpretation, they're stripping that extra confidence from her and making her a little more frail and fragile than she ever has before. And I just felt that was an unfortunate twist on the character that I love so much. You know?
It makes the movie look silly, because she's got that kind of white bath water that you can't see through. That you have to see in this movie, which is I always find that hilarious when somebody's bought that non-see-through bath water.
What are you bathing in?
I think
is there milk in there?
Honestly, yes. It's like a bar soap that she's left in there for hours, and and it just makes them.
Well, and it's fire resistant. Apparently, it can keep the heat of a fire away from you.
But with the cameras under there, you can see everything. It just robs her character of some of that uniqueness and have the character be sexual in a way, show her in the act of being sexual, because it was such a big part of her character before. They're not quite brave enough in this interpretation to do justice to a wonderful character.
Yeah. Anything else on the girl in the spider's web?
I like it enough to say see it.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, I think they're saying either way. It's like 40% for the audience and the critics. So it's just kind of
botched Sony franchise work again. They should have made the sequel with everyone else involved. I mean, even if Fincher didn't do a second one, giving it to Fede Alvarez with everything that they had going for them, it just didn't make enough money.
I was going to say, Fincher's wasn't like super, super successful. It wasn't,
actually, and that's what made them put the brakes on it. But
they also released an R-rated thriller at Christmas. I mean, what was the point of that? What exactly the audience were you going for there?
Counter programming or something. I don't know. I'm trying to remember back in 2011. I remember seeing it in November, December, one of the two, and thinking to myself, yeah, you didn't really maximize all of your potential here. But it's a hard movie to market. It's a hard character to market. But whatever it is that they did, it just didn't work.
Well, and you've seen remakes of horror or foreign horror movies, I guess, but those tend to be smaller budget movies, and it just kind of, I don't know. I liked the Swedish version just fine.
Yeah, and those are very much local of Stockholm,
right?
And so is this. There's only a few set pieces, to be honest, right? And so you don't really have to spend a whole lot of money. What they did with the girl with the dragon tattoo, there's a lot of chase scenes. There's a lot of flashy camera work and whatnot. A lot of stuff that you can say, oh, well, they spent money to do that. Okay, and then this one, if they spent a lot of money on it, I'm not sure where exactly it is, because it's really the camera work that's doing
like
it.
40 grand, $40 million on it, 40 grand. They didn't pay anybody.
The Sweden version.
Right. All right, Beautiful Boy.
Beautiful Boy, starring Steve Carell and Timothy Chalamet, based off of a true story of a guy named David Sheff, who's a successful freelance writer, and his son, Nick, who is now a writer, having written about his experience as a drug addict. Disappointing movie, I'll say. This is a film that doesn't really have any strong perspective to it. It doesn't really, these characters don't really have any kind of momentum of any kind. The story, of course, is that the kid, he's very young, gets into methamphetamine at a very young age and becomes deeply addicted and kind of disappears from time to time, and his father continues to go get him and tries to rescue him until he doesn't. And I don't know what to say here. It's a beautiful looking movie, and it in that it's, I guess I'm thinking maybe how great the movie looks is supposed to juxtapose the ugliness of drug use, but basically what it comes down to is drugs are bad, don't do drugs. And that's really all I came away from this movie with, and I was kind of expecting to have a more human experience than the guidance counselor from South Park. I don't know what they were going for here. At times it kind of feels like they're making ordinary people without Mary Tyler Moore, and she was kind of the driving force of that. Say what you will about that character, she kind of drove the plot as opposed to everybody else. Steve Carell is definitely doing kind of a Donald Sutherland thing, where he is that saintly, suffering figure who just desperately wants to connect with his son but can't. And there's just nothing there. There's no narrative momentum. It just kind of fits and starts of things that happen. He disappears. He's back. He disappears. He's stolen his little brother's $8 to go buy meth. He's back. He's in rehab. He's recovered. He's fallen off the wagon. And all the time, Timothy Chalamet just looks as beautiful as always he does. He's a handsome kid, and he has the most handsome drug addiction in the history of drug addiction.
Breaking Beautiful.
He's got pretty addiction. He's just never looks like I don't know. And the thing about it is that I made the mistake of reading a little bit more about what the actual Nick went through, and he was doing some really terrible things to get his drug money, and the movie completely ignores that. Just leaves it entirely out. He was having sex with men, even though he's a straight kid. He was having sex with men to make money to buy meth, and this movie makes no mention of that whatsoever. Just completely leaves that out. I don't know what the point of leaving that out is. He didn't leave it out of the book. He talked about it openly. But it's not in the movie. In the movie is all this pretty, lifetime picture of, his girlfriend nearly died in an overdose. That was traumatic. There's no momentum here.
So shit happens. There's no real story behind that.
Yeah.
Shit happening. I hate movies like that.
Carell, is not bad, but his character is just kind of useless. He's the one trait that they give him is he's a journalist, and his thing is research. So his son is into meth, so he starts doing extreme forms of research to the point where he actually tries meth. That goes nowhere. He doesn't really learn anything, but I guess the point is that you really don't know anything about this. There's nothing to learn. It's just some people are a little bit more susceptible to that type of addiction than others. And those who are truly susceptible are deeply susceptible to it, and it's a huge struggle. This movie doesn't portray that well. It just doesn't. It's all surface level. And I was really disappointed. I wanted something more. I wanted to connect with these characters, and I don't feel like I did. There's the fact also that the characters are super, super apparently rich. Like somehow he's the richest freelance writer in the world because he can afford to send his son to multiple different expensive rehabs. And I guess the point the movie might be making, and they don't do it very well, is that this can happen to anybody, even somebody who has all sorts of privilege. This can happen to them. I've seen other writers and critics extrapolating from this that Nick felt inferior to his father as a writer, and that's what led him to feel like, well, I need drugs in order to kind of match up to him, or I need drugs to forget that I'm not able to match up to him. But I didn't see any of that in the movie. Like, if you want to read into that from the books, maybe, but I didn't find any of that in the movie. They don't explain anything of what Nick's motivation is. Other than, hey, kids sometimes try drugs and some of them get addicted. Great observation. Thank you for that. The one thing I do like about that they do introduce, but they don't really explore very well, is that there's at one point Chalamet, his character Nick, talks about shame and about how, well, I felt ashamed of using drugs, and because of that shame, I turned back to drugs to get rid of the shame. Only to find that when I came off the drugs, the shame came back. So I needed the drugs again to get rid of the shame. And that's his cycle of that. And that made sense to me. That made a lot of sense. And I thought they could have explored that in a more interesting way, and they just don't.
Yeah, I wasn't able to make it to that one. I don't know why I'm looking up Rotten Tomato scores this week, but the critics had it at 69%, and audience had it like almost at 80, so I take that for what you will.
Yeah, of all of the trailers that we've seen this year or whatever, top 5 in terms of how it moved me to want to see it. I was going to do a 3-fer in one day just to get this one in. It's one of the more disappointing reviews to hear about of the year because of how strong the trailer looked. Not that Steve Carell isn't completely capable of doing a knockout performance. Little Miss Sunshine comes to mind just right off the top of my head. Really great in that. But
Foxcatcher.
Timothy Chalamet is really knocked it out of the park each time I've seen him thus far. I kind of was hoping that this would be yet another notch on the belt where you'd recognize this guy with every single thing that he does.
He's really good, but just the movie is not nearly as strong as he is.
And you look at a score like 69%. When a movie like this, like the trailer you're saying knocked it out, if you're not in the 90s and you know something's not right with this movie, it's definitely mixed. So that's definitely not a...
I also wonder if there are critics who like this movie more because they've actually read one of either David or Nick's books, which would probably lay out the story a little bit further.
I definitely think that explains the audience review for sure. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, anytime you say drugs are bad and that's your movie, you're going to get a certain select audience member go, that was good because they said drugs are bad, and it moved me. No offense if that's you, but you're probably not listening to a movie podcast if it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized Undisputed Classic.
Our Undisputed Classic this week is Whoville.
Yes, Pedro Almodovar, in honor of the fact that Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown turns 30 years old this weekend, we chose to do Whoville as the classic from 2006, a movie that was earned an Oscar nomination for the lead actress, Penelope Cruz, who is incredible in this movie. a story of a family abuse and murder, and the combination of this sort of telenovela drama with a kind of a Hitchcock vibe to it, which is Almodovar is great at doing homages, which we'll get to as well in Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. But the homage here is so smart. It is like, again, it's a very bright and colorful version of a Hitchcock movie in many ways. You've got multiple bodies, you've got multiple murder mysteries going on. At the same time, you've got this familial drama that's right out front about parents and children and abuse, and it's very funny too. It's a really witty movie. Penelope Cruz's character is really smart, and the other characters are very colorful, and I like the idea of these women who are dealing with this abuse, and we don't call the cops in this situation. We just do what needs to be done, and the cops are. We don't need cops. We need to keep this. We keep this among us. That's where the abuse matters. It's a very funny way of handling things. I love this movie. I love how empathetic this movie is. You notice all the intimate touching in this movie, the way these characters, the kissing and the hugging and the touching, and it's really beautiful. Like the level of comfort that these people have.
Yes, as I'm watching, I'm like, thank God I'm not from Spain. Not that, I'm not a touchy type person. I don't know. Just even if it was Penelope Cruz, I don't know if I could do that. I'm so American. I sexualize everything. So
I really enjoyed that, and the way these characters care about each other, and it's so sweet, and it's such a great movie. It's a great looking movie. The cinematography is gorgeous. The scene setting is amazing. His use of color is just on point. I mean, Almodovar is a genius, and this is just another notch on that genius belt.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those, they're going to go there now. Okay, where do you come up with this? But in the end, it all it all fits and it works. At one point, someone dies and then they're opening up a restaurant. Just kind of in the same day. And then, but the way they weave, I don't know, it just... It makes it entertaining, and then it really was an easy watch. I was really shocked at that. I don't know why. I just woke up at 8 a.m. on Saturday and started watching it, and it was just I couldn't stop. It was like reading a good book. It was a lot of fun to watch. I'd say the worst part about it is more just than the translation is certain things that are written out don't play. You wouldn't say it that way as an American or someone who speaks English, but the way they're saying it makes sense to their culture, and so reading that's funny. Like, it smells like farts in here while you're in the bathroom is kind of. But again, if I spoke Spanish, then I would understand probably more the context of everything that's happening. But that's clearly just another Americanized thing that I'm complaining about, so it's really not an issue at all. But where this movie goes is, from the get-go, it's constantly going somewhere different, is just entertaining in and of itself. And I gave you one spoiler, Josh, but there's another one that is even more fucked up than that one.
Yeah, and the reason they're saying this is because I didn't get the chance to finish the film. It's one of those start it too late type of things, but my rental's still good for another 24 hours or so, and I will finish it.
Definitely finish it to see where it goes.
The good thing is that I already have some experience with Almodovar, so I know what you're talking about. He has a way of making us uncomfortable that works somehow. I'm very uncomfortable at the beginning of this movie. A father, or a supposed father, is looking in on his daughter in an unfortunate way. Then there's a scene in the bed, and you think that Penelope Cruz and her husband are going to have sex, and you know exactly what is on this supposed father's mind, and it's just creepy as hell. It's hard to watch and hard to sit through, but what it does is set up how much you hate this guy, and then it makes you ask the question, how bad do you feel? That he gets it, and I don't think that's too much of a spoiler here, because the plot kind of revolves around that.
Yeah, and that's early on too.
It is. What I did see is you guys have summarized it well. The camaraderie with all of these women is really something else. It's kind of like they've been so beaten down by everything that they've seen that they've got their own method of communication. It's like a language that they develop amongst themselves just to get through life, you know? I like that you said Hitchcock, and the reason why, this is a pretty simple idea, right? You've just got an abusive husband who's going to try something, and then he's going to get murdered, and the story plays out from there. It's a simple idea, but when you got a director like Almodovar, and he looks really closely at the simplest things, then your world gets opened up on your own. Like, you can start to see some of the weird things about life or the wonderful things about life outside of seeing the film. I get the same experience when I watch a Hitchcock movie. Rope, for example, is a very simple idea, and it's got like one set, right? But there's so much going on within that it becomes a fascinating movie, and you have to have somebody that's really great at telling stories in order to make that happen. And the weird stuff then seems to work because he set you up for all the weird stuff by showing you the alternate side of very simple things. So I love the director. He's just amazing.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I love what they did with the mother. The way they made that work.
That is so great.
Because
it's so absurd.
At no point, it's absurd, but at no point do you not buy it.
Right.
I know what you're talking about here, right? And whether or not, I'll find out. But at first, it's only hinted at that there's some mental illness going on with the aunt, and then she appears, and then, well, maybe. I don't know. The film starts to confuse me. It's a wonderful way of kind of messing you up as a viewer.
And you have no idea either. Like, it's going to go further than you even think.
There's an element, too, of they use a little bit of reality television in this movie. Yeah. And there's a moment in this movie where I actually reacted like an audience member in a reality show, like a Jerry Springer show, where I literally went, it was so great. I laughed at my own reaction.
Did you get that far?
At least not consciously.
I think that was pretty close to the end, but yeah, it's. Man.
Yeah, I think I got about an hour or hour and 15 minutes in. It's a 2-hour flat on the money film. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a really, really easy watch, and it's just one of those movies. It's like, in a way, it's very random, but at the same time, it's not. I don't know. Just the way he pulls it together, like you said, is very Hitchcockian,
and there's a weird lightheartedness to the fact that we're watching a murder mystery going on.
But it's not just a murder mystery. There's sexual assault. There's rape.
Yeah, it's literally about the cycle of abuse in a family of multiple generations. But it's also very funny.
Right. Yeah, because it's kind of like if Cheers had the background of sexual assault. I only say Cheers because they're having a restaurant bar kind of thing. Yeah, definitely finish it, but also check out Volver because I'm glad I did. It was a lot of fun. Anything else on Volver before we move on?
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
All right, our top 5 this week is non-American movies or foreign films, depending on where you live. I'll start with Jason from New Mexico. He had Old Boy, The Wailing, Unchin
Andalou,
Cube, and The Life of Brian. Uncle Jeff had All About My Mother, Talk to Her, Life is Beautiful, Elle, and Bad Education. I didn't put Volver on here because I didn't even think about putting it on here, even though I just watched it before doing this. Number 5, Let the Right One In. 4, Pan's Labyrinth. 3, Amelie. 2, Old Boy. Number 1, Martyrs. With like Suspiria, Crouching Tiger, E.T. the Killer, Django, Amos Peros. Audition is honorable mentions. Do you have yours, Josh?
I do. Yeah. Talk to Her. Almodovar right there. That's, if you haven't seen that one, pretty simple concept where something really bad is happening and it gets kind of turned on its head, and there's something comedic about it, even though it's not funny at all. That's a really wonderful movie. 4 is The Hunt, the Mads Mikkelsen-led film from a few years ago. 3 is Pan's Labyrinth. 2, Amelie, and number 1 is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I did have a bunch of honorable mentions as well.
Before you get to yours, talk to her. Better or worse than Whoville, or kind of ballpark, same thing?
They're in the same. They're in the same par for me. They're both brilliant. They're both phenomenal movies. I think I had Talk to Her actually ranked in my top 5 of the year that it came out, and Whoville was in my top 10 that year that it came out.
What's your list?
My list includes Amelie and A Very Long Engagement. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is really kind of an absolute genius. Old Boy, Martyrs, and The Rules of the Game is an amazing film by Jean Renoir from 1939 about class warfare and about kind of making the rich look silly, which is something I always enjoy.
Number 18 in 1988. Squeezed and pulled and hurt my neck in 1988.
Squeezed and pulled and hurt your neck in 1988.
All right, 1988.
7 movies turned 30. I'll start with ones that I didn't even get close to watching, and that would be Far North with Jessica Lange and Charles Durning.
Why not?
I'm just kidding. Well, yeah, I really want to hook the audience, you really got to grab them with the tension.
And that's why Charles Durning is the biggest star in the world.
Stick around. We're going to get to Child's Play in a little bit.
Yeah, I promise. A movie called Split Decisions with Gene Hackman and Craig Sheffer. I didn't know this movie existed, but it's a boxing movie. Well, that's kind of interesting, except for the Craig Sheffer part. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. Chime in if you have.
Shots fired, Craig Sheffer. Watch out.
I'll continue to rip on actors that I don't think are very good. Let's get him and Dudikoff and the guy from Terminator 3 in there from Cherry 2000 as well.
Michael Ontkeen is going to be next. Hang on.
I don't know who that is, but I believe you. I've heard that name before.
Patrick Bergen, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Man. Okay. Anyways, Iron Eagle 2. The first Iron Eagle, revisiting that when it turned 30, way shittier than I remember it being. Because I liked the original Iron Eagle, but I don't even see Jason Gedrick in this sequel, so there's really no point. No, I'm just kidding. Ernest Saves Christmas. So if you like Ernest Goes to Camp, he also saves Christmas. I don't ever remember seeing this one, despite seeing the Goes to Camp one, dozens of times.
I've never seen an Ernest movie.
A little Ernest.
How very earnest of you.
I enjoy Ernest movies. I mean, they are. I mean,
it's sweet and, completely harmless, fine, but also maybe not your humor cup of tea.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not going to win any art awards, but it's what it is.
I cannot possibly imagine you enjoying
aware
it.
of the character.
For commercials.
I've seen other people talk about Ernest and write about Ernest, but I've never actually seen one of the movies, and I never will.
I believe you. I don't think it's anything that you would enjoy.
Patreon episode.
Jim Varney episode. Ooh.
Nothing but. You have to watch all of them.
Ernest Goes to Jail. Ernest in the Halloween one. Scared Stupid. Yeah.
I watched most of the Harry Potter movies, and I kind of put Harry Potter on the same level where everybody else puts Ernest. So.
Shots fired.
At who, I don't know what.
I don't know either, but fired somewhere. A Cry in the Dark. So this is one that I really wanted to watch, but didn't get to it. This is the one about the dingo eating the baby, and Meryl Streep plays the mother. It's based on a true story. Sam Neill, not Liam Neeson, as I had originally put on the post, is her co-star. I was thinking of before and after. He did eventually get into a movie with Meryl Streep, but I haven't seen A Cry in the Dark. Uncle Jeff was saying that it was actually one of the better ones of the year and wanted to know our reaction to it. Have either of you seen it?
It's been years since I've seen it, and I couldn't get to it this week with all that was out there to watch. And I don't know. It's one of those where Meryl's really putting on the accent pretty heavily.
Okay.
She's very good at that. So I mean, I don't know. I can't remember whether I don't know if I watched it very closely.
Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, Almodovar film that turns 30, the onus for our classic. I didn't watch that one either, so go right ahead.
This movie is wonderful. This is the lead actress is the mother in Whoville, and she's just absolutely wonderful in this movie about a voice actress who finds out that she's pregnant. She's trying to get a hold of her lover, who is a married man who is trying to leave town without talking to her, and doesn't know that she's pregnant. She's trying to track him down until she decides she's not trying to track him down. Then he's trying to track her down. But he's not much of a character in this movie. This is about women, and it's about this specific couple of women. Her and her friend, who she's got this wacky friend who accidentally slept with a Shiite terrorist who's trying to hijack a plane, and she thinks she's going to go to jail because he's been caught and is going to confess that he was staying with her when he was going to do this. So she's freaking out. They're both thinking about killing themselves. She's got this. She's made gazpacho and filled it with sleeping pills in order to take her own life, but then she decides not to. Then everybody else who comes in the house decides to try it without knowing. It's so much fun. This is a farce. It's a Doris Day 50s comedy with this other dark element of death and suicide, and it's classically Almodovar, balancing those two ludicrous tones all at once, and brilliantly so. It's also got elements of high level of telenovela take off here with the heightened over-the-top drama and the kind of over-the-top performances. It's a wonderful film. Everybody should see this because it is so fantastically Almodovar, and one among his first as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it is widely available. You can stream it right now on Amazon if you want to. It's one of those random titles that, until we got closer to this week, I didn't realize it was an Almodovar movie. I just saw the title, and then I'm like, oh, Banderas, Almodovar. Banderas must be the man in question that's married.
No,
he's not.
He's the son of that man. He's very young. This is 88, so he's very young in this movie.
Desperado hadn't come out yet.
True, but like a couple years ago, his Law of Desire movie that had come out, he had already played an adult in that movie. So, okay. Well, how about that? Also, the one that I guess most people would know from this week, and my first time viewing it this week, would be Child's Play, the movie about the doll Chucky. My reaction to it... Go ahead.
Played by the Academy Award winner, Brad Dourif. You can't forget that part.
Well, then how come we didn't bring that up when we watched The Two Towers?
Never been in. Child's Play never put that in their trailer or nothing. Why would you not? Lead with that.
Okay. Brad Dourif himself on screen is barely here, but he's the serial killer whose soul gets transferred to a doll, and Chris Sarandon is doing his best version of an officer, and it's really hard to believe him in that role. Catherine Hicks is really good at looking distressed, and so she's the mother. This has, I'm going to let you say it, but because you're going to get it.
What, single most insufferable child this side of Jake Lloyd?
Thank you. And you're right. Whatever he's doing, like, it doesn't work. Okay, there's a lot of child actors that can project adult feelings and whatnot, or even their own feelings well. This one cannot. And the movie itself is, I suppose it's fine. There's a decent amount of like jump scares and whatnot, but I'm not taken by the idea of a killer doll. I keep saying to myself, like, it's a doll, throw it, man. Like, he keeps overpowering these things, and I don't get the reality of that. Like, how is he stronger than a human?
Chris Sarandon doing that Ace Ventura in the car where he's just kind of bending and twisting, trying to get, like, the doll has jumper cables that he's thrown around his neck and is trying to strangle him like he's Grace Jones.
Yeah.
In the back seat. And Sarandon, God bless him for trying to sell that. You know, he's got a fucking doll, this 10-pound doll's wrapped jumper cables around his neck, and he's pretending like this got super strength and is dragging him into the back seat. It's hilarious.
Well, in fairness, if you dropped a 10-pound weight but seriously, you wouldn't be choking. You wouldn't be able to get it off very easily necessarily, especially if it's pulling. It's going to be more than 10
It would
pounds.
create some resistance.
Yeah,
but it's hard to buy.
10 pounds is not what this doll is. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just random number
right,
here.
But, I mean, and also, you have a doll walking towards you, you're not going to be like, kick it. You're going to be like, what the fuck's going on? And there's going to be that moment of pausing, and then you're going to get stabbed.
Yeah.
by a toy knife.
I don't understand the
Or real
physics of this movie. I'm trying not to understand it in general. But as long as if you try and have some fun with it and just go in like knowing that it's not, you can't take it seriously, then I think that it might work. But Chucky himself is such an abhorrent character. Like, as I understand it, it gets slightly campier and funnier as the films go on.
Oh yeah, I think by the time they went straight to video, it was full on comedy.
Okay, see, that maybe I could buy
Somehow
a
he
little
hasn't
bit.
gone to space yet. I don't know how that hasn't happened.
Don't give them any ideas, man.
Jason went there.
Leprechaun went there. But what
Back to the Hood too.
I honestly, like, I'm watching this again. It's been years since I'd seen it because I was so stupid the first time I saw it. And I honestly was wondering, like, did this director think that is this just like a thought experiment on his part? Like, I'm going to do this as seriously as possible and see if I can actually convince people to take this seriously. There's a scene in this movie where he actually sets the scene where the camera is pointed at Catherine Hardwicke. She's got, what's her name?
Catherine Hicks.
Catherine Hicks. It's camera's on her. In the background, you see Chucky sitting on a table, kind of out of focus. And the point is you're supposed to watch Chucky and be scared if he moves. And I was like, I'm looking at Chucky and I'm watching him in the background, and I realized to myself, why the fuck am I watching that stupid doll? Like, okay, yeah, I guess you get a point there for making me look at the dumb doll. This is not, but just the attempt on his part made me laugh. And I don't know whether I'm laughing with the movie or at the movie, as I can never tell whether or not I'm supposed to be laughing with it or at it. Is the movie a joke or not a joke? I don't know, and I think that's a failure on the part of the filmmakers.
I mean, I don't like the movie per se, but I also think that it's less a failure in 1988 than it is
I
today.
agree with you, and that then is kind of the essence of this segment is, does it hold up?
No.
And in this particular case, no, and it may not have then for some. I couldn't take it seriously and figure out which direction the film wanted to go in. You're talking about the confusion of what we're supposed to believe in. I had no idea what was going on at the end. If they would have gone full camp, right, or told us, that this is like the strength of demon possession or whatever, and they kind of get into voodoo a little bit here, but that doesn't last very long either. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, they do establish that he has some kind of super strength, but the doll is so stupid looking that you can't take it seriously. And plus, even at 6 years old, was there any kid that played with a doll like that in such a way that it was so weird and awkward? Like, I don't remember. I don't know. There's something weird. There's some weird connection with this boy and this doll that is very awkward to me.
Okay, that leads me to wonder if this whole idea is derivative of the My Buddy idea.
Okay.
If you remember that toy from mid '80s, we're definitely talking about before the film came out, and you've got child actors in commercials between the ages of, say, 4 and 8, maybe, playing with their version of My Buddy. My Buddy goes everywhere with me, and he's dressed in overalls, too. Like, it's a pretty close facsimile to Chucky.
Definitely.
For girls, they had Kid Sister.
Yeah.
And I could I won't sing it for you, but, I could, because that's how many times I heard it. But we didn't have one of those dolls in our house, because as a kid, I was like, that's really corny.
Right.
But I wonder if this film is somehow derivative of how ridiculous those commercials were.
We couldn't afford one. That's why I didn't.
Yeah. It was a big moment in our house when we got a Teddy Ruxpin, and only my brother got that one.
Couldn't afford that one either.
Yeah.
I mean, they clearly established an iconic character that made several movies since then.
I'll never understand that myself. I don't get the appeal of this character at all, either comically or horror wise. It just doesn't. I don't understand what people see in this.
I will say, and I've showed my kids more than most parents should, this is the only one that truly scares my son, more so than anything else. Jason doesn't really do it. Freddy doesn't really do it. This one, before Chuck even went bad, he was like walking out of the room, kind of turning, turning his head around the corner.
Because the doll is really stupid.
We can't go to a mall because there's a store called Spencer's that everybody knows about and has a Chucky doll in there, and he knows that it's there. And if we're even close to that store, he freaks out. I think part of it is my father-in-law actually I guess it's my sister-in-law or whatever. She has the doll, and he's seen it up close and personal, and I don't know, it terrifies him.
So maybe this is a horror movie for kids?
Definitely. I saw it when this came out, and I don't know. Maybe I did. I don't really remember. I remember being with like my parents' friends' kids, and we were like flipping back and forth because we were so scared to stay on the channel because it was on Showtime or something like that.
Honestly, the dummy from Goosebumps is scarier than Chucky.
Dummy from Goosebumps doesn't carry you.
As of 2018, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I guess I just wish, like...
he doesn't stab you to death.
Of course. You know what? Chucky, I think, just would have worked a little better if, like, most serial killer characters aren't quite as ugly as Chucky is. Like, the things that he says and the aggressiveness and whatnot, he's just basically... raging against the screen the whole time. And if you're going to have a serial killer in the story or whatever, serial killers in movies are generally interesting. Like, you want to know why they tick or whatever. And in this case, it's another one of those. He's just a really bad dude. He's the boogeyman, and just go with it. And,
the sequels take care of that. The first one, they have to get him in a doll.
Fair enough.
I will be honest, I'm curious how the remake will work, if they can actually make this work in 2019 or whatever it's going to be when it comes out.
Yeah. Was it Blumhouse that's doing this?
I think so.
Probably they do everything else.
I mean, I think this and Jason are the two that you can kind of get away with remaking and possibly making it better. I don't think Friday the 13th did, but they could try again as many times as they want because it doesn't really matter. And I kind of think they could do the same with this and at least see what happens. But I'm curious.
The fact that Chucky shouldn't have existed in the first place, I guess, maybe why it could work.
I encourage you to go on YouTube and check out a My Buddy commercial just for the heck of it.
I know the song too.
Wherever he goes,
you're gonna go.
Yeah.
That is one sad, friendless child.
Yeah.
Well, because they were rich and they were single children, and they had. They didn't have brothers and sisters, and they were rich. They didn't have friends either.
Maybe that's what happened to Nick in Beautiful Boy. He just didn't have any friends, and he grew up with this stupid doll that was talking to him and made him do drugs. That's a much better movie.
Right. You know, I spent a good portion of the first act of Child's Play also trying to figure out, what is that actress from? And we're talking about Dinah Manoff, who plays
Empty Nest.
Empty Nest, yes. And I have seen Empty Nest in 20-some years, right? And I used to watch that show all the time. It's derivative of Golden Girls. But I knew that face, and I couldn't place it with a TV show. And then trying to look on IMDb, who is the sister? I click on that and list her filmography. What was she in? Yeah, that's how much the film interested me.
What a shame that she lived in a cardboard apartment building. If she lived in an actual apartment building, she'd still be alive.
I know, right?
Well, but she couldn't afford the doll, so she had to buy it on the black market. They explained all this.
Not the cardboard apartment building.
She couldn't afford a real one. They explained that.
I love the scene, too, where she goes to shoot Chucky in the chest, and the chest explodes before she fires.
So that's just bad editing. Because you could have done that. You could have easily fixed that.
And they didn't. That's just lazy, yeah.
Or maybe they did it right when they shot it, but when they edited it together, they put it in backwards. It didn't make a lot of sense in the movie.
No.
Is that 88?
That's everything? It for 88.
I try to make Child's Play fun. I got to play devil's advocate against my will. I don't know.
I will say that I'm happy that Chucky exists for one thing. There's a clip from WCW Nitro back in '99 where Rick Steiner has a brief, a feud with Chucky. And it's one of the wonderfully ridiculous things about professional wrestling.
He didn't get stabbed.
No, but the promo is beautiful. I think Rick Steiner made Chucky more believable than anybody in this movie.
There's no way that's true.
Watch the promo.
Jennifer Tilly made this more believable.
Oh, that's right. Bride of Chucky, right?
She ended up when she came in, she was in the next 4 or whatever.
I never watched any of those.
They're fun. If you like fun. If you don't like Child's Play, you're not fun. I'm just going to attack the audience. No, I have no attachment to Chucky.
It's clearly it's a cultural moment, though.
Definitely.
So whether or not it holds up is definitely. I'm glad that I watched it
finally.
Not hold up
at all.
I don't know. I still don't understand it, but I'm glad that I watched it.
All right, next week we've got Widows, The Fantastic Beasts 2, Instant Family, and maybe some other random art house movie that comes up here. Our classic is Bonnie and Clyde, and then I don't believe I made a top 5, so I will do top 5 movies you're thankful for. We used to do bonus podcasts about that. Yeah. Now you guys can do it. We're curious. As always, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. Up here are Key Grip Levels, Jason Bryant, and Charlie Messing. Our character actors, Cousin Jeff, Christina Cato, and Josh Paul.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effects level, Sarah Ward and Corey from Ivy Envy.
May the Force be with you.
Our associate producer is Jason from New Mexico.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars are Uncle Jeff and Dave Sievers.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon. Like I said, the merch will be going out this week. I promise. It's in my car. I just have to put postage on it. That may take a day or two, but it will be done. But if you want merch, if you want a credit on the show, you want to get access to our bonus shows, ihatecritics.net/Patreon is the best way to help support the podcast. And then tell your friends, help us grow the show. It's hard to grow shows when you say bad things about when you're critical of anything. It's hard to get people because everybody's going to disagree. So like us for us and not our opinions. our interactions. I don't know. Help us grow the show. We'd really appreciate it. Anything else before the show's over? All right, we'll see you next week.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody could have. I mean the 3 best friends that anybody could have. That's right, the 3 best friends.
Blade Runner or I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Some hesitation in Sean's voice.
I couldn't remember what the other movie was for a second.
I Know What You Did Last. Is that some foreign? Oh, no. Anaconda or Dark City? Do you need to think about that one?
No, it's Dark City.
Dark City. Although Anaconda does have some unintentionally hilarious moments.
Sin City or Field of Dreams?
Sin City.
I was going to say, I know that I've lost this one already, so go on.
I do like Field of Dreams, though.
I do too. You know.
I really like Sin City. I thought that was the best movie that came out that year. Miss Congeniality or Grumpy Old Men?
Grumpy Old Men.
Agreed.
Miss Congeniality. Home Alone or Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Monty Python.
Monty Python.
Carrie, 1976, or Jim Carrey and Liar Liar?
I really like Liar Liar, but no, go Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie for me as well.
Return of the Jedi or L.A. Confidential?
L.A. Confidential.
It's Return of the Jedi.
Ewok
for me,
movie,
based
okay.
on my list.
L.A. Confidential.
But I do love L.A. Confidential.
I love Jedi, but, you know.
Yeah.
Clerks 2 or The Cable Guy?
Clerks 2.
Clerks 2.
The Emperor's New Groove or Singing in the Rain?
Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain.
Blood Diamond or The Day After Tomorrow?
Which Day After Tomorrow?
2004? Is there more than one?
Yeah, there was an original that inspired that and from 1952.
Oh.
Really?
Which I would vote for in a heartbeat.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you don't like
That
Blood
movie's-
Diamond, though.
Yeah, no, I don't like Blood Diamond at all.
I do like Blood Diamond, but I guess I'm a fan of Edward Zwick most of the time, except for Legends of the Fall. But it's better than Roland Emmerich. I don't know what I'm saying.
Right.
So
Blood Diamond. Good Will Hunting or American Wedding?
Good Will Hunting.
Agreed.
Misery or Basic Instinct?
Misery.
I will go with Basic Instinct.
I'll go with Misery, but I do like Basic Instinct. Adaptation or A Clockwork Orange?
Oof, that is rough. That is rough. I guess probably I wouldn't want to watch Clockwork Orange. Probably I would have watched Adaptation in a moment. So.
I hate A Clockwork Orange, despite who made it and everything like that. So Adaptation it is.
I'd probably go A Clockwork Orange, but I really like Adaptation. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 or Good Morning Vietnam?
I'll go Harry Potter. I did like that one a lot.
As will I.
I will go Ernest. Saving my choice.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sean got it and didn't laugh because it wasn't funny, but I appreciate it.
I'm very used to not being funny.
I'm not. I was like, this is weird. No one's laughing at my jokes. How to Train Your Dragon or Alien Resurrection?
How to Train Your Dragon.
Speaking of crappy Brad Dourif roles, it's How to Train Your Dragon.
Coyote Ugly or Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
The Hobbit and An Unexpected Journey or Beverly Hills Cop?
Beverly Hills Cop.
Agreed.
Star Wars Phantom Menace or Henry V, 1944?
Oh, Henry V.
Henry V.
You can skip that one. I don't think anybody else has seen that.
I've seen the Kenneth Branagh one, but not the...
The Phantom Menace or Stand By Me?
Stand By Me, I guess. I mean, I like Stand By Me. I actually got a soft spot for the Phantom Menace, too.
Stand By Me.
I agree. Police Academy or Hard Day's Night?
Hard Day's Night.
Police Academy.
Hard Day's Night. Tin Cup or Spider-Man 02?
So this is the first...
yeah, the Raimi one.
And what was the other choice?
Tin Cup.
Spider-Man.
I'll go Spider-Man too, but it's close.
Shark Tale or Sliding Doors?
Sliding Doors.
Sliding Doors.
Shark Tale is insufferable.
Trading Places or Road to Perdition?
Ooh, man, that's good. Gosh. I kind of want to go Road to Perdition. I think that's a really well-made movie.
I agree.
Go Trading Places. I'm not a big fan of Road to Perdition. The Emperor's New Groove or The Talented Mr. Ripley?
Talented Mr. Ripley. What's this thing got against Emperor's New Groove suddenly?
I'll agree. Talented Mr. Ripley, but
Shallow Hal or National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Shallow Hal.
Christmas Vacation.
It's Christmas Vacation. I do like Shallow Hal, though. My Blue Heaven or American Pie 2?
American Pie 2.
My Blue Heaven. I think I'm the only person that loves that movie.
I really like American Pie 2. Rope or that you can't do a stand-up comedians. Rope or Labyrinth?
Rope.
Yep. It was like Zach Galifianakis' stand-up performance from before he was famous. Why is that even in here? The Rock, 1996, or 3:10 to Yuma, 07?
3:10 to Yuma.
Yep.
I think that should probably be a top 20 movie at this point.
I'm curious where it is. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, or Live Free or Die Hard?
Winter Soldier.
Agree.
Meet Joe Black or Mr. Brooks?
Fishing with Gandhi. There it is.
I haven't seen Mr. Brooks, but
those movies both suck hard.
I would probably choose Meet Joe Black.
Just for the first 5 minutes alone. I know we've been saying that a lot lately, but that made the next 3.5 hours stuff. I don't even know what I'm saying. The Girl Next Door or The Green Mile?
The Green Mile.
Green Mile.
Girl Next Door.
I kind of like that movie.
I think Green Mile's over long. Quantum of Solace or Shaft? 2000.
Shaft.
Boy, this is an exercise in mediocrity. I'll choose Quantum of Solace for filmmaking, at least.
It's an exercise in mediocrity. I'll go with Quantum of Solace for filmmaking.
Better filmmaking, despite end result both being mediocre. Yeah,
I'll go Shaft. Starship Troopers or Dirty Dancing?
Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing.
Come on, do something funny. Back to the Future or Batman Returns?
Which one? I can never remember which one Batman Returns
Penguin.
is. Oh, I hate that one. Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
The Indiana Jones where they use a nuclear bomb to be saved in a fridge, or Godfather Part 2?
Godfather Part 2.
Godfather Part 2.
And the final one, Hard Bodies 2 or Toy Story?